Hey y'all, want to start a little different? Got another play for y'all. It's actually a play a little bit farther back. It was written about 1981 by a man named Charles Fuller. He was actually a war veteran as well, and his play is called A Soldier's Play. You may have heard of it. It actually has an adaptation. Let me get a better version for y'all. That one kind of. It's called A Soldier's Story because obviously if they make a movie, they can't call it a play. So the adaptation called A Soldier Story has a bunch of heavy hitters up in it. Heavy hitters like Denzel Washington, Adolph Caesar, David Harris, Robert Townshend, Larry Riley, and Art Evans, just to name a few of them. It was a bunch of heavy hitters up in this play and movie. Samuel L. Jackson was one of them that opened up the play back when it actually premiered. It won a Pulitzer Prize in 1982 for drama as well. So another heavy hitter here. So let's get right into it. So start off, do a little summary. I'm gonna start off with segregation didn't just shape civil life in 1940s America. It extended to the military where black soldiers were expected to fight for a country that refused to grant them equal rights. Charles Fuller's A Soldier's Play takes us deep inside the world, unraveling a murder mystery that exposes racism both within and outside the black military ranks. So pretty much this play is about racism inside the military and out, civilization, dealing with segregation and how it affected the black community inside the military and out, especially with Charles Fuller being a war veteran. I felt like he wrote this to express his feelings about being in the military and still having to face racism while being black in the military and still having to come home even though you felt like you were supposed to be this type of patriot, war hero, blah 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 or whatever, and still facing racism and segregation and still all the hate after you done fought a whole world war for the country you're supposed to be a patriot for. So let's go right into Act 1. We start off with the play opening up at Fort Neal, Louisiana in 1944. Sergeant Vernon Waters is gunned down and his final words are cryptic. He says, "They still hate you." His murder sends shockwaves through the segregated base, and a rare figure appears to investigate. A black officer named Captain Richard Davenport. And that is very important because you don't usually see black officers or high-ranking black captains in this time because it's 1940s. Army is segregated. There's black pretty much barracks and white barracks. There are separated barracks, and the soldiers still have to eat on the white side or the black side, or it's still just everything's still separated. It still feels like you're basically living at home, even though it's supposed to be this whole brotherhood army military base. So the captain comes on, and our Sergeant Waters is murdered. So to continue, we go. Davenport's presence is controversial. White Captain Taylor, his reluctant superior, doubts that a black officer can lead a fair and effective inquiry. Meanwhile, the black soldiers under Waters' command wrestle with their own fears. Some afraid of racism from white officers, others unsure if they can trust their own. So, with this being said, there is a whole group of soldiers that are in the barracks that pretty much most of the play takes place in, and they are trying to figure out who murdered the captain, essentially. And Davenport, who is the black officer that comes on, he is interviewing every other soldier to get their side of the story and see what happens, and they figure out so the staging kind of is the key part too, because depending on what kind of stage you have, you can make an office for the captains to do the interviews. You can have the interviews in the barracks, and you can have it in just like a little interrogation room, because there's a lot of scenes in here that have a lot of different outcomes that you can play around with. I've had the honor to do this play, and in Alameda, it was a fantastic experience to actually be able to put this play on and bring it to life. So what we did was we had one of the farthest left side was, from the audience at least, the farthest left was the captain's office. The middle in the ground area was the barracks area. The top was some of the little bunk beds and stuff like that as well, and the sides were pretty much where we left at. I'll put some of the pictures up as well, so you'll probably see some of them floating around. So staging is very important too, because some of these scenes can get a little tricky with the interviews as well, and I loved how we did it, so I'll definitely put some pictures around about the play. And before we go into Act 2, I want to say there is going to be some spoilers, because I pretty much already spoiled a little bit up in this video. So if you don't want to keep watching and read the play, check out A Soldier's Play by Charles Fuller. It is a great read, and thank you for watching the video. So going into Act 2, there is pretty much the whole play is a bunch of flashbacks. So you got to keep up with which part is a flashback and which part isn't, because in the beginning, Sergeant Waters does get killed. So when he does pop up, he's pretty much not there, because we are trying to solve the mystery of his murder. So Davenport only shows up, the black officer, he only shows up to solve the murder. And he's pretty much a military lawyer. So he's pretty much investigating all the soldiers in the barracks to see what has happened, was it a deal of racism, and how we can play it out. So let's go into Part 2, or Act 2. The most haunting part about Waters' past is his treatment of Private CJ Memphis. CJ, a gifted baseball player and a free-spirited country boy, represented everything Waters despised, a stereotype that in Waters' mind gave white people an excuse to keep black men down. So CJ is an important character because he is the fun-loving, happy-go-lucky. He's just pretty much in the army because he was probably like an 18-year-old kid that just got out of college, didn't know what to do, or whatever the case may be, and he is trying to still see the light in life. He doesn't really think, how do you explain CJ? CJ is such a good character, man. Because he knows how to play guitar, he plays baseball, he's pretty much real gifted. He's a big teddy bear, and usually what I do love about the casting of this character is usually supposed to be a bulky person. So he's usually supposed to be like a good 6 foot, 250 pound big guy. So CJ is always supposed to be a big teddy bear, and his character just goes through a lot through this, and Sergeant Waters puts him through a lot, and he doesn't realize it until you'll see when we get there. Okay, so continuing on with Act 2, Waters systematically broke CJ down, framing him for a crime he didn't commit and pushing him to despair. When CJ took his own life in the stockade, something in Waters shifted. He thought he had done what was necessary, but his actions set a tragic cycle in motion. So, obviously, CJ took his own life. And this scene was probably like one of the hard scenes to watch and actually put on, because right after that, well, not even right after, I was playing the character of Bernard Cobb. So he was pretty much CJ's best friend, and we were both like country boys, so we both loved each other. We both were happy-go-lucky and, you know, just kind of out there. And when CJ took his own life, it was everything shifted because he was not necessarily the life of the party, but the light of the party, if that makes sense. So continuing on with the rest of Act 2, Waters believed he was molding men into soldiers, but in reality he was isolating himself. His own men began to hate him, and when he was found dead, it was clear that the crime wasn't just about race. It was about power and betrayal. So this is where we kind of feel like we get why somebody would kill him either way, because it could have been race. It could have been because you drove somebody to kill themselves who actually was a kind-hearted person that actually didn't do anything to anybody, that was probably like, say your best friend that was like the least amount of, had the least amount of evil in them, and then all of a sudden you just hear that they pass away from some tragic event, and you're thinking like, what? Why that person? Why? Well, they never did nothing to nobody. And that character was CJ from beginning to end of the play, and that character was written that way. And I think Charles Fuller really brought out a great character and making you fall in love with a character and feel some emotion from him being taken away. So we're getting into the final act. It's Act 3, and we're starting to figure out, we have had a bunch of interviews with the soldiers. We starting to piece some of the pieces together and starting to figure out who was actually responsible for the murder of Sergeant Waters. So if you don't want to get spoiled again, turn off the video, read the play, find it. Charles Fuller, A Soldier's Play, very great read. In the final act, Davenport uncovers the shocking truth. Waters wasn't killed by a white supremacist or a vengeful officers. His murder were two black soldiers, men who saw him as traitors, a man who turned against his own people. And I see, if you read through the play, because I'm trying not to spoil it too much, if you read through the play, you'll understand why Waters was so strict. And what I discovered, especially doing the play, making so many discoveries, I felt like Waters had good intentions, wrong approach, very wrong approach, especially calling them slurs, demeaning them, pretty much telling them they weren't gonna amount to nothing because they wasn't white, and because he was basically a higher officer that pretty much is as good as you're gonna get. And overall, I can see that he wanted, because there is a couple of monologues in here that he has, because he has, holy, whoever plays Waters, I feel for you, buddy. I feel for you, but because that dialogue is intense. He has so many monologues, and because it is all flashbacks, his scenes are so powerful that they oh man, they take the scenes away, because like you want to hate him so bad that you do hate him. So without revealing too much, I think you should definitely see how Waters' character plays out, because he does have I don't want to say he has a good heart, because the way he treats his soldiers were like obscene, and I don't see how anyone wouldn't, especially like you're just around so many guns or whatnot, and how badly he treated everybody. And then after, the range of emotions, especially when you feel like somebody made your friend kill himself, it's kind of tough, man. It's kind of tough. So I was happy to even attempt to bring this play to life and bring the emotions out of this play. And it was definitely a hard thing to do, but I'm glad we got it done, especially at the theater we did it at too. It was an amazing experience. So in conclusion, after Davenport is finding out who the killers actually are. I won't reveal actually who they are, because if you've seen the movie or read the play, you should know which character, which one does what. So two of my last little summaries. Waters killers believed they were serving justice, but their actions only deepened the cycle of violence and division. The true enemy wasn't just external racism, it was internal oppression, the kind that made Waters turn on his own men and in turn lead to his death. So his intentions and his impact of his actions made them actually take his life, because they felt like they were unsafe around him because of so much stuff he done. He would pretty much bully his soldiers into trying to be something that they weren't. They just wanted to live, be soldiers. They were in the army. They knew they were probably going to fight and be on the front lines if anything actually happened. So they were trying to live the best that they can and make the most out of the life that they got, because they already in the military and their sole purpose there is to fight anyway. So why fight internally when the fight is already so much out there and blatant in our faces anyway? Last one, I promise I'll let you guys go. Thanks for sticking in with me. A Soldier's Play is more than a murder mystery. It's a profound exploration of race, identity, and the consequences of internalized racism. Charles Fuller forces us to ask, when does the fight for dignity become self-destruction? And how can a divided people ever achieve true justice? Charles Fuller wrote this play in 1981. It won a Pulitzer Prize in 1982 for drama. I love this play so much because it tackles a bunch of systemic things we face, internal things we face, because the whole trope of all skin folk and kinfolk, and just watching our backs and being aware everywhere, because even in the army, where you're supposed to have a brotherhood, especially what they teach you, I guess. I'm not an army vet, so I can't really speak on what they teach you in the army, but what I get out of from what I hear from vets is they supposed to teach how a brotherhood is supposed to be, no matter race, skin color, or whatever the case may be. And even still in those days with segregation and stuff, they still show their true colors, to where it doesn't matter where we are. If they don't like they not gonna let you into their spaces.